My beloved child, pay attention to what has been happening within your heart, because not every warning arrives with noise, conflict, or obvious danger. Sometimes, the clearest sign that something is not right is the quiet unrest you cannot explain. You may be surrounded by familiar people, pleasant words, warm smiles, and gestures that appear sincere, yet something deep within you continues to feel unsettled. You may tell yourself that you are imagining things, that you are being too sensitive, or that you should simply be grateful for the attention you are receiving. But I want you to understand that discernment often begins before your mind can fully explain what your spirit has already noticed. There are environments that look peaceful from the outside while slowly disturbing the peace within you. There are conversations that seem harmless but leave you feeling confused afterward. There are relationships that appear supportive but quietly cause you to question yourself more and more. There are people who speak gently while placing invisible pressure on your heart, making you feel guilty whenever you do not respond the way they expect. Not everything that sounds loving is love, and not everything that feels familiar is safe. I see beyond appearances. I see motives you cannot see, patterns you have not yet recognized, and intentions hidden beneath words that seem kind. This is why I am teaching you to pay attention not only to what people say, but also to what their presence consistently produces within you. True care does not require constant confusion. Genuine love does not need to control you in order to keep you close. Healthy connection does not make you feel as though you must continually prove your loyalty, explain your heart, defend your intentions, or silence your own discomfort just to maintain peace with someone else. You have sometimes mistaken emotional pressure for closeness because you wanted to believe the best about people. You have overlooked warning signs because you did not want to judge too quickly. You have given another chance, another explanation, another benefit of the doubt because kindness is deeply rooted in you. I do not condemn that tenderness. I am not asking you to become suspicious of everyone or to harden your heart against people. I am teaching you that kindness and discernment must walk together. A tender heart without clear vision can become exhausted by situations it was never meant to carry. Compassion does not require you to ignore patterns that continually disturb your spirit. Patience does not mean pretending that something unhealthy has suddenly become healthy simply because you hope it will change. My child, learn to notice patterns instead of being persuaded only by moments. Anyone can speak comforting words for a short time. Anyone can appear concerned when they want access to your trust. But character reveals itself through consistency. Pay attention to whether words and actions agree. Pay attention to whether a person respects your conscience or repeatedly pressures you to ignore it. Notice whether you feel free to be truthful or whether you are constantly calculating what you can say without creating tension. Notice whether you are becoming clearer, stronger, and more peaceful, or increasingly anxious, uncertain, and emotionally drained. These things matter. Your inner unrest should not automatically become your master, because fear can also create confusion. But neither should you dismiss every repeated disturbance as meaningless. Bring it into my presence. Let me teach you the difference between fear that comes from old wounds and discernment that is exposing something real. Ask for wisdom rather than reacting quickly. Watch carefully rather than accusing. Listen deeply rather than allowing appearances to decide everything for you. There are times when something seems beautiful because it offers exactly what your heart has been longing for: understanding, attention, belonging, reassurance, or the feeling that someone finally sees you. These desires are not wrong. You were created for love and meaningful connection. But when a deep need remains unhealed, it can make false comfort appear more trustworthy than it really is. You may accept control because it feels like concern. You may mistake constant attention for genuine love. You may interpret possessiveness as loyalty or emotional intensity as spiritual depth. That is why I want your identity to become rooted in me rather than in how strongly another person makes you feel wanted. When you know that you are already loved, You become less vulnerable to anyone who tries to use affection as a way to gain power over your peace. Do not be ashamed if you are only now beginning to recognize something you did not see before. Growth often means seeing clearly what you once excused. Wisdom develops as you learn to recognize what certain patterns produce over time. You are not required to understand every hidden motive before admitting that something is affecting you in an unhealthy way. You do not need perfect evidence before acknowledging that your heart has repeatedly become unsettled in the same environment. Sometimes, the first step toward clarity is simply becoming honest about what you feel, instead of constantly talking yourself out of it. I am drawing your attention to what you have ignored, not so that you will become fearful, but so that you will become awake. I want you to recognize the difference between peace and emotional dependence, between love and manipulation, between genuine support and subtle control, between a connection that strengthens you and one that slowly weakens your ability to hear me clearly. Do not rush ahead. Do not make decisions from panic. For now, simply see clearly. Let truth come into the places where confusion has been allowed to remain. Let wisdom name what your heart has struggled to describe. I am not leading you into suspicion. I am leading you into discernment. And as your eyes become clearer, you will begin to understand why that quiet unrest within you has been asking for your attention. Now that you are beginning to recognize what repeatedly disturbs your peace, I want to teach you something that may require more courage than you expected. There are moments when wisdom does not ask you to remain and endure, but to step away with a clean heart. You have sometimes believed that leaving means you failed, that creating distance means you were not patient enough, or that setting a boundary proves your love was not sincere. But not every departure is abandonment, and not every separation is an act of anger. There are times when leaving is obedience, when distance becomes protection, and when refusing to remain in an unhealthy place is one of the clearest ways you can honor the life and peace I have entrusted to you. Remember Joseph when temptation reached for him. He did not remain in the room trying to prove how strong he was. He did not stay to argue until the other person finally understood his intentions. He did not believe that courage required him to stand as close to danger as possible. He ran. To those watching from the outside, his action might have looked fearful or impulsive, but I saw something different. I saw wisdom. I saw a man who understood that some battles are not won by standing your ground, but by refusing to give darkness more access to your life. There will be moments when you must learn the same lesson. You may not receive permission from everyone to protect your peace. Some people will question your decision because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. Others may call you distant when you stop allowing them unlimited access to your time, emotions, and attention. Someone may accuse you of changing simply because you are no longer willing to accept what you once tolerated. Do not allow those reactions to automatically convince you that you are doing something wrong. A boundary can disappoint another person without becoming an act of cruelty. You can say no without hatred. You can create distance without seeking revenge. You can forgive without returning to the same position that repeatedly wounded you. Forgiveness releases bitterness from your heart. It does not require you to reopen every door. Mercy does not mean surrendering wisdom. Love does not demand that you remain available to manipulation simply so someone else will feel comfortable. I am teaching you to separate compassion from self-abandonment. You can care about a person and still recognize that closeness with them is no longer healthy. You can pray for someone without continuing to place your heart in their hands. You can wish them well without joining every conversation, accepting every invitation, or explaining every decision. There are times when the most peaceful response is not another argument, another defense, or another attempt to make someone understand you. Sometimes you have already explained enough. Sometimes continued explanation only pulls you back into the same cycle from which you are trying to become free. You do not need to win every misunderstanding. You do not need to correct every rumor. You do not need to prove the purity of your heart to everyone who questions it. There are judgments you can place in my hands and leave there. Let your life speak through consistency rather than exhausting yourself in endless defense. But as you create distance, guard your heart carefully. Do not allow necessary separation to become bitterness. Do not rehearse every offense until anger becomes your new attachment to the very thing you left. Physical distance means little if your mind remains trapped in constant resentment. You are not truly free if you carry the person everywhere through anger, imagined conversations, and the desire to make them regret what they did. Release the need to punish. Release the need to be proven right in front of everyone. Leave justice with me, and let your responsibility be to walk forward without allowing the wound to reshape your character. I want to give you strength without hardness. I want you to become wiser without becoming cynical. I want your eyes to become clearer while your heart remains capable of love. There may also be loneliness after you step away. Familiar voices may become quiet. Routines you once depended on may disappear. You may wonder whether the emptiness means you made the wrong choice, but learn the difference between loneliness and being set apart. Loneliness tells you that you have been forgotten and that you must return simply because silence feels uncomfortable. Being set apart teaches you that not every empty space must immediately be filled. Sometimes, distance gives your heart room to breathe again. Sometimes, quiet allows you to hear what constant emotional noise prevented you from hearing before. Do not rush back to what harmed you simply because the unfamiliar feels lonely. Give yourself permission to become accustomed to peace. At first, peace may feel strange when chaos has been familiar for a long time. You may even miss what exhausted you because familiarity can create attachment even when something is unhealthy. Do not confuse missing something with being called back to it. Feel the sadness without allowing it to decide for you. Grieve what you hope the relationship or environment would become, but do not let that grief erase what you have already learned. My beloved child, when the time comes to step away, do it without hatred, without unnecessary cruelty, and without making bitterness your companion. Leave what you must leave with humility. Speak only what needs to be spoken. Refuse to turn separation into revenge. You do not have to destroy another person in order to protect yourself. You do not need to make them look evil so that your decision will appear justified. Simply walk in the clarity I am giving you. There is courage in a quiet departure. There is strength in refusing to return to patterns that continually diminish your peace. There is maturity in blessing what you can no longer remain close to and continuing forward without carrying poison in your heart. When I call you out of a place, I am not teaching you how to hate those who remain there. I am teaching you how to obey without bitterness, how to protect what is sacred without becoming hard, and how to leave with your heart still free. There are moments when what feels like rejection is not rejection at all, but protection you cannot yet recognize. You have stood before certain doors with hope in your heart, believing that if they opened, everything would finally make sense. You prayed, waited, tried again, adjusted your plans, and perhaps even wondered what more you needed to do. When nothing changed, disappointment began to settle into you. You looked at the closed door and assumed something had gone wrong. You thought you had missed your opportunity, that you were being overlooked, or that your prayers had somehow gone unheard. But I want you to understand that you can only see the entrance. I can see everything beyond it. You see the opportunity as it appears today. I see where it would lead tomorrow. You see the promise, the excitement, the recognition, or the possibility of finally receiving what you have wanted for so long. I also see the hidden cost, the pressure you would have carried, the relationships that might have weakened you, the compromises you could have been asked to make, and the peace you might have slowly lost. There are doors I close not because you are unworthy of what is behind them, but because what is behind them is unworthy of what I am protecting within you. You have sometimes measured my goodness by whether I gave you what you requested. When the answer seemed delayed or the opportunity disappeared, you were tempted to believe that I had withheld something good. Yet you do not know how many times what looked beautiful from a distance would have become heavy once you entered it. There are positions that attract applause but demand a price your heart was never meant to pay. There are relationships that begin with warmth and promise but would eventually pull you away from the peace I have been teaching you to recognize. There are opportunities that seem perfectly timed because they satisfy your desire to move forward, yet they can still lead you in the wrong direction. Not every open door is from me, and not every closed door is against you. Sometimes, the door that refuses to move is the very place where my mercy is standing guard. You may call it a lost opportunity. I may call it preservation. You may call it disappointment. I may see a danger you were spared. You may call it being left behind because someone else received what you wanted, while I see how differently your life needed to unfold. Do not compare your path with the doors opening for another person. What is right for someone else may not be right for you. Their timing is not the measure of my faithfulness toward you. Their opportunity is not evidence that you have been forgotten. You are not walking through the same story, carrying the same responsibilities, or being protected from the same things. I know the path that belongs to you, and I know what must not become part of it. Remember Moses when he was still an infant. To human eyes, the basket on the river could have looked like abandonment. A child was being separated from what was familiar and carried into circumstances he could not control. Yet what appeared uncertain was not outside my care. The river that could have been seen only as danger became part of the path through which he was preserved. The basket was not evidence that his life had been forgotten. It was part of the protection surrounding him in a dangerous season. My child, this is why you must be careful about judging your life only by appearances. Something can feel like loss while still carrying mercy. Something can move away from you while still serving your good. Something can fall apart without your entire future falling apart with it. You have mourned invitations that disappeared, plans that collapsed, relationships that ended, and possibilities that seemed to vanish at the moment you were ready to receive them. I saw every one of those moments. I saw the questions that followed. I saw you wondering whether you should have tried harder, spoken differently, moved faster, or become more impressive. But not everything that leaves your life leaves because you failed. Sometimes, I allow something to be removed because I know where it would take you. Sometimes, I prevent a connection from deepening because I know what it would eventually require from you. Sometimes, I interrupt a plan because the destination is not what it appears to be from where you are standing. Do not make an idol out of one particular outcome and then assume that your future has been destroyed because that outcome did not happen. Your life is larger than one door. Your purpose is not trapped behind one opportunity. Your worth does not rise when people choose you and fall when they do not. You do not become more valuable because a position is given to you, because a relationship continues, or because the world finally recognizes your name. I do not want your identity to depend on things that can disappear overnight. If your sense of worth is built entirely on receiving what you want, every closed door will feel like a verdict against you. But a closed door is not a statement about your value. Sometimes, it is simply a boundary around what was never meant to become your portion. So, when something does not open, resist the urge to force it immediately. Do not exhaust yourself trying to break through every barrier simply because you have already invested time, emotion, or hope. There are moments when persistence is faith, but there are also moments when insistence becomes an unwillingness to accept protection. Ask me for clarity. Let disappointment speak honestly, but do not let it interpret my character. You may not yet understand why something was withheld, interrupted, or removed. I am asking you to leave room for the possibility that love can sometimes appear as restraint. One day, you may look back and realize that the door you begged to enter would have led you somewhere you no longer wish you had gone. You may recognize that what once felt like being denied was actually being spared. Until then, do not measure my care only by what I allow you to receive. Learn also to recognize my hand in what I refuse to let take hold of your life. Some of my greatest protections will not look like rescue when they first happen. They will look like unanswered prayers, interrupted plans, lost opportunities, and doors that remain firmly closed. But my beloved child, a closed door does not always mean the end of your story. Sometimes, it means I am refusing to let the wrong chapter become your future. When one door closes and the next one does not immediately open, you may find yourself standing in a place that feels strangely quiet. The movement you expected has slowed. The recognition you hoped for has not arrived. The answer you thought would come quickly seems delayed, and the future appears less certain than before. In moments like these, it is easy to assume that nothing is happening. You may look around and see no visible progress, no applause, no dramatic sign that your life is moving forward. But I want you to understand that some of my deepest work happens in places where very little can be seen from the outside. Hidden seasons are not empty seasons. Silence is not inactivity. Waiting is not wasted time. There are things I can build within you in obscurity that would be difficult to form while you are surrounded by constant attention, achievement, and noise. You have often measured progress by what changes around you, but I also measure it by what is changing within you. I am shaping your character in ways that success alone could never accomplish. I am teaching you how to remain steady when circumstances do not give you immediate reassurance. I am strengthening your ability to trust when you cannot see the entire road. I am refining your motives so that when something good eventually comes into your hands, you will not need it to tell you who you are. There was a time when you believed that arriving somewhere important would finally give you peace. You thought recognition might silence insecurity, achievement might remove uncertainty, or a fulfilled desire might make you feel complete. But if I gave you everything before your heart was ready, the gift could become heavier than you imagined. A position received too early can become pressure. Influence gained before humility is formed can become a trap. A blessing carried without inner stability can slowly become something you fear losing. This is why preparation is also an expression of love. I am not interested only in bringing you somewhere. I care deeply about the person you are becoming on the way there. In the hidden place, I teach you to do what is right even when no one notices. I teach you to pray without using prayer as a way to control the outcome. I teach you to remain faithful when there is no immediate reward. I teach you to serve without needing your name to be mentioned. I teach you to find joy that does not rise and fall according to whether others recognize your value. These quiet lessons may not feel impressive, but they are building foundations strong enough to carry what comes later. My child, you have asked me many times for certainty. You wanted to know exactly what would happen, when it would happen, who would remain, which opportunity would appear, and how everything would eventually work together. I understand that desire. Uncertainty can make the heart restless because you want something solid to hold. But I am teaching you a deeper kind of certainty. I am teaching you that peace does not have to come from knowing every outcome. It can come from knowing the one who leads you. You may not know what waits around the next turn, but you can know that you are not walking there alone. You may not know how long this season will last, but you can know that I am not absent from it. You may not understand why progress seems slower than you expected, but you can trust that slowness is not always evidence that something is wrong. Some roots must grow deeply before anything appears above the ground. There are also parts of you that I am gently removing during this season. The need to rush, the habit of comparing yourself with others, the fear that being unseen means being insignificant, and the belief that delay means you have been forgotten. I am making you less dependent on circumstances for emotional stability. I am teaching you to remain at peace even when the answer has not arrived. I am showing you that you can survive uncertainty without forcing a solution. This is not punishment, it is maturity. The person who emerges from this season will not need constant reassurance to remain faithful. You will not collapse every time a plan changes. You will not assume that silence means abandonment. You will become steadier because your confidence will no longer rest entirely on what you can see. Do not despise the ordinary days of preparation. Do not believe that your life matters only when something dramatic is happening. There are quiet decisions you are making now that are preparing you for responsibilities you cannot yet imagine. Every time you choose patience instead of panic, something is being strengthened. Every time you surrender control instead of forcing an outcome, something is becoming freer. Every time you remain faithful without applause, your foundation becomes deeper. I know you would sometimes prefer immediate movement to hidden growth, but I see the full weight of what lies ahead. I know what must be strengthened before you carry it. So allow this season to do its work. Do not rush to escape every quiet place simply because it feels unfamiliar. Let me refine what needs refining, heal what needs healing, and strengthen what has depended too heavily on external confirmation. My beloved child, you are not being left behind. You are being prepared. What appears still on the surface may contain profound movement underneath. And when the appointed time comes, you will not step forward as the same person who entered this hidden season. You will move with greater humility, deeper peace, clearer purpose, and a heart that no longer needs to understand everything in order to trust the hand that is leading you. There are battles that do not happen around you but within you, and because they are quiet, you may not always recognize how deeply they are affecting your faith. Doubt rarely enters with a loud announcement. It often begins with a single question that seems reasonable enough to entertain. Does God still hear me? Has something changed? Did I misunderstand what I believed? Why has the answer taken so long? Why does someone else seem to be moving forward while I remain in the same place? There is nothing wrong with bringing honest questions before me, but you must learn the difference between a question brought into the light and a question allowed to grow alone in darkness. What you refuse to examine can quietly begin examining everything for you. A small uncertainty can become a lens through which you interpret every delay, every disappointment, and every moment of silence. Before long, you may begin looking at my faithfulness through the eyes of your fear, instead of looking at your fear through the truth of my faithfulness. This is why I am calling you to become watchful over what you allow to remain in your mind. Not every thought deserves your agreement simply because it appeared. Not every feeling is a prophecy about your future. Not every fearful conclusion is truth. There will be moments when your emotions speak loudly because you are tired, disappointed, wounded, or uncertain, and in those moments the mind can create explanations that feel convincing. It may tell you that you have been forgotten because an answer has not come. It may tell you that I am closer to someone else because their path seems easier. It may tell you that your struggle proves you have been abandoned, but pain is not proof of my absence. Waiting is not evidence that my love has changed. Difficulty does not erase the history of every moment in which I have carried you before. Remember Peter when he stepped out of the boat and walked toward me on the water. The wind was real. The waves were real. The danger was not imaginary. Faith did not require him to pretend that the storm did not exist. Yet something changed when his attention became governed by what frightened him. The storm became larger in his awareness than the one who had called him forward. Fear began to interpret the moment, and he started to sink. My child, this can happen within you as well. You can stare so long at what has not happened that you forget what has already happened. You can focus so intensely on one unanswered prayer that you overlook years of provision, protection, mercy, and strength. You can allow one difficult season to speak more loudly than the entire history of my faithfulness. But Peter's story did not end with him sinking. When he cried out, I reached for him. I did not reject him because fear had entered his heart. I did not tell him that one moment of doubt had disqualified him from my care. I took hold of him. Understand this clearly. I am not asking you to hide your questions from me. I am asking you to bring them to me before they become conclusions about who I am. Tell me when you are afraid. Tell me when you are disappointed. Tell me when you do not understand. Faith is not pretending that your heart never trembles. Faith is choosing where you will turn when it does. A trembling heart that still comes toward me is not the same as a heart that has surrendered itself to fear. The danger is not that uncertainty sometimes appears. The danger is allowing uncertainty to become your teacher. Do not let wounds explain my character to you. Do not let disappointment become the authority that decides whether I am good. Do not let comparison convince you that my timing for another person is proof of neglect toward you. When a thought enters your mind and begins pulling you toward confusion, stop before accepting it as truth. Ask what it produces. Does it lead you toward clarity or deeper chaos? Does it remind you of what is true, or does it erase every memory of grace? Does it encourage honest trust, or does it make you withdraw, isolate yourself inwardly, and assume the worst? Learn to examine the fruit of what you are believing. Fear tends to narrow your vision until all you can see is the problem in front of you. Truth widens your perspective and reminds you that this moment is not the whole story. Look back at what you have survived, not so that you can live in the past, but so that you can remember accurately. There were seasons you once believed would break you completely, yet you are still here. There were losses you thought you could never endure, yet strength was given to you one day at a time. There were moments when you could not see a way forward, and still a path appeared. There were prayers answered differently from what you expected, but later you understood that you had not been abandoned. Your memory can become a witness against the lie that I have suddenly stopped being faithful. This does not mean every question will immediately receive an explanation. Some answers will remain beyond your understanding for a time. But you do not need every mystery resolved before you choose where to place your trust. My beloved child, guard the story you are telling yourself about this season. Do not allow fear to rewrite it into a story of abandonment when you do not yet know what is still unfolding. Do not call yourself forgotten simply because you cannot see the next step. When doubt speaks, bring it into the light. When fear rises, return to what you know. When your thoughts scatter in many directions, come back to truth one thought at a time. You do not need to defeat every uncertainty in a single moment. You only need to refuse to let uncertainty become the voice that defines me, defines you, or defines what your future can still become. I have been faithful before this moment. I am present within this moment, and no fearful whisper has the authority to erase what my hand has already shown you. As this day comes to an end, I want you to release what you have been carrying and allow your heart to become quiet in my presence. You have spent enough hours thinking, planning, remembering, worrying, and trying to understand things that cannot all be resolved tonight. There are burdens you have carried from morning until evening, conversations you have replayed in your mind, responsibilities that still feel unfinished, questions that remain unanswered, and fears about tomorrow that have already taken too much strength from today. But night was never meant to become another battlefield where you continue fighting everything you could not solve during the day. I created rest as a gift, and I want you to receive it without guilt. You do not have to stay mentally awake trying to hold your entire life together. There are things you must place into my hands simply because your hands were never designed to carry them forever. I know there are nights when your body lies down while your mind continues running. The room becomes quiet, yet inside you, there are voices, memories, imagined conversations, regrets, possibilities, and worries competing for your attention. What seemed manageable during the day can suddenly feel larger in the darkness. An old wound may return. A sentence someone spoke may replay again. A mistake from long ago may try to convince you that it still defines who you are. You may begin imagining what could happen tomorrow, rehearsing problems that have not occurred, and searching for solutions to situations that are not yet yours to face. My child, do not turn your bed into a courtroom where you put yourself on trial every night. You were not created to punish yourself with memories I am asking you to surrender. You were not created to predict every possible disappointment before morning arrives. Let tonight become a place of release instead. Bring me what hurts without trying to arrange it into perfect words. Tell me what you fear. Give me the disappointment you have hidden behind strength. Give me the responsibility you are afraid to put down because you think everything will collapse if you stop holding it. I do not require a perfect prayer from you. There are moments when a sigh is enough. There are tears that express what language cannot. There are nights when simply becoming still before me is an act of faith. Remember Elijah. He had been courageous, obedient, and strong, yet after intense conflict he became exhausted. In that moment, I did not shame him for reaching his limit. I did not immediately place another mountain before him and demand greater strength. I gave him what he needed. He received nourishment, care, and rest. Understand what this means for you. Weariness does not always mean you have failed. Sometimes, you are simply tired because you have carried too much for too long. Sometimes, the next faithful thing is not to push harder, but to receive the restoration you need. Rest is not laziness when your heart has been fighting battles no one else can see. Rest is not surrender to defeat. Rest can be surrender to me. When you close your eyes, you are acknowledging that the world can continue turning without your constant control. When you loosen your grip, you are admitting that I can hold what you cannot. When you stop trying to solve tomorrow tonight, you are choosing to trust that I will meet you when tomorrow actually comes. You do not need strength for every future day in this moment. You only need enough grace to place this day down. Let go of the words others have spoken over you. They are not the final sentence over your life. Let go of mistakes you have already brought before me. They do not have permission to become chains around your identity. Let go of situations you cannot change tonight. Replaying them will not give you control. It will only steal the peace your body and spirit need. Allow your thoughts to settle. You do not have to force peace into existence. Simply become aware that you are not alone in the silence. I am near when the room is dark. I am near when no one is calling your name. I am near when you feel too tired to explain what is happening inside you. Darkness does not hide you from me. I see every burden you have not spoken aloud, every pressure you have tried to carry with dignity, and every lonely place you have kept hidden because you did not want others to know how weary you had become. Yet I also see what you cannot see from tonight. I see morning. I see strength returning. I see circumstances still being arranged beyond your awareness. I see the next step even when you do not. So do not carry yesterday into tonight and tomorrow into this moment. Give me each burden one by one. Let the past remain where it belongs. Let the future wait for its appointed hour. Tonight, your calling is not to understand everything, but to rest beneath my care. My beloved child, close this day, knowing that you are held. Not every problem has disappeared, not every question has been answered, and not every wound has completely healed, but you no longer have to remain awake as though everything depends upon you. Release your grip and let your heart become still. Sleep knowing that while you rest, I remain faithful. Let your breathing slow, let your thoughts grow quiet, and let peace return to the places fear has occupied for too long. Tonight, I am giving you more than sleep. I am teaching your heart the deeper rest that comes when you finally understand that you are safe enough to stop carrying everything alone